What is going on, you guys? It's your boy, the IRS here, and we are back to collect your taxes. Uh, so that sounded better in my head, but anyway, yeah, we're back. Got some more bullshit to chat about, so it's always a fun time. I got a question. What do college kids, the Wall Street elite, and homeless people, and your average mother of children in the America have in common? What's a commonality? And again, there's probably tons of overlap here, but drug reliance, drug use, right? In some sense, right? At some point, because I feel like anyone that doesn't use drugs, people that don't use drugs regularly are like the most average unexceptional, which in a lot of ways is pretty exceptional. It's impressive to remain out of trouble, right? Generally speaking, in some sense. But at a certain point, your life becomes too good. You're making too much money that you have to have some. And drugs aren't the only thing that fall into this category. I think like any kind of like weird addiction or something like that. Like people have like porn addictions and stuff. But at some point you start making so much money or have so much success that you have to like rely on drugs to live or something like that. But on the same side of that coin, it's like your life can get so bad that it's like at some point the only thing that can become worthwhile, right? Like the difference between a homeless guy and like some multimillionaire who's just like hooked on cocaine because why not? But it's crazy to think about that. And like the people that don't are the ones that are like, I guess just have to bother themselves or keep themselves entertained by like working or something. Those people like don't really have the time or the money for drugs. But if you're homeless and you don't really have anything else, you don't really care about anything else. I mean, drugs are probably what got you to the point of being homeless. I don't think you become homeless as sober, right? I feel like that's just not the case. I don't know. I haven't lived that myself, so I'm just being speculative here. But yeah, I would imagine the drug use came before being homeless. But either way, at a certain point, it's like it's not really. Most things fall within like a threshold of above or below, where it's like, if you're above this threshold of money or something, then you should be like the least likely to have any kind of drug trap or something like that. But then ultimately it becomes this like this kind of upper and lower bound where it's like you see people that are either too far below the homeless people or too far above like these millionaires who are bored but like addicted to drugs. Those are the people that like are the ones you see as heavy users. Essentially, the people in the middle are the ones that are just like they're too busy doing other shit to like be dicking around doing drugs. And I think obviously not all drugs are created equal, right? So it's like I'm not going to compare a pothead to a meth head, right? That's not really fair, right? That's ridiculous. But it's still interesting to think about the distribution of drug use across different classes. And I guess the least likely or the least concentrated class is like the middle class that uses drugs the least. And it's like the upper class and the lower class that uses a lot of it, which is just an interesting thought. I don't really have any other like insights or anything cool to say about that. It's just something I was thinking about. And also it got me thinking about just the like even the mom drugs, like everything's a drug, right? You hear, so it's like, oh, sugar is a drug, or there's so these chemicals that are bad for you. Anytime anyone says chemicals and they're like trying to use it in a negative sense, I think, naturally we want to think it's negative, but like, do you know what chemicals are? Everything's fucking chemicals. You are a bunch of chemicals. So it's like, well, there are chemicals like only good and only bad. You realize like any chemical is potent enough to kill you in any certain dosage, right? It's just that dosage is what makes something toxic, right? It's the amount of that could kill you, is what is the make or break factor. So just the fact that something is a chemical doesn't make it like again, it shouldn't be the boogeyman just because you can make it sound scary. Like there's so many things that you probably can't even pronounce that are nothing but good for you, but they sound scary and you don't know what they are, so it must be bad, which I guess is kind of the stranger danger attitude. So it's fair, I guess, but it's still just not really, I don't see it as justified, right? It's not like just because you're not intimately familiar with something, you can't trust it, right? It's like, really, you think you're going to be able to familiarize yourself on every topic to a comfortable enough extent to where you know enough about everything to make your own unique judgments? To a certain point, you just got to trust it and let it fly. And if it's, I don't know. I'm not talking about, this is out of the context of drug use, by the way. This is just out of like foods that people like read the chemical ingredients for food. It's like, oh, what does this mean? It's like, okay, well, I didn't study food, or I don't know all these weird chemicals. And it's like, yeah, but it doesn't make them bad just because I don't know what they are. It's like you live your life with a certain amount of trust. It's like, I don't know how the bus transport, like I don't know how a car works, but like I'm still going to get in it, and it's got me here and back a billion times before it. And if it ends up being what kills me, it's like, okay, fine. It's like, I'll take my chances, really. I said, I don't know how the engine of the car works, but like, neither do you probably. So like, fuck off type of thing. Versus it's like, if you're not super familiar with it, then you shouldn't use it, or it shouldn't be a part of your thing. I just think that's stupid. So it's like, part of it's just kind of addressing the limitations of your knowledge and having a certain amount of blind trust in just the systems in place not to kill you or something. And I guess food is one way where it kind of comes into play, because it's the whole like argument around genetically modified stuff, where it's like, that just sounds spooky. It's like, ooh, but in reality that just means it's like, we've just optimized the production of it, generally speaking. It's not like it's not like the way you'd think of it is like somebody, picks up a perfectly healthy banana and then like sticks a syringe into it, and all of a sudden it's like this genetically modified banana. It's like that's just not how it works. They're just like, someone's obviously done the math to like, okay, we want to maximize the nutrition of the banana and increase the ability for it to grow fast and big or something. So it's like, well, how do we need to water the soil? And generally you can't have all this like malintent behind everything, because if you read into everything's a scam. So it's like, where do you draw the line? So if you are just out to find a scam, you'll find one, because they're all over the fucking place. And eat the fucking banana. It's a banana. Like why would you be worried about the banana? Like, there's so many other things that you should be worried about. It's crazy. People like, I don't eat genetically modified, I don't eat organic produce. I mean, like, eating goldfish. Are you kidding me? Like, really? Like, how is do you not see the irony there? Like, or the hypocrisy? Like, you're gonna dump into a bag of goldfish, but you're afraid of a banana. It's crazy. It's crazy. Not to say that you shouldn't eat goldfish or that you should only eat bananas. Like, just don't act like you're on some superior intelligent high ground because you're avoiding genetically modified foods like bananas when you're eating goldfish. It's like that. You realize that, I don't know. It's funny. It's really funny to me whenever I see that, especially people who are particular about like very specific chemicals or things in their diet, and then they have to like tiptoe around everything to make sure that they're like not doing this and that. But then they'll like, pound like 16 White Claws. It's like, are those in your diet? It's like, all right, I only eat like, monosaccharide fats or something like that. I don't even know the freaking term, but then it's like, but then you'll just drink like 12 beers. It's okay, well, maybe those don't have the fat in them, but like, what was the point of your diet again? Was it a health thing, or because reason to believe like that's goes beyond the modern drinking dosage, whatever. It's just funny how hypocritical people are, myself included. But at least I'm openly willing to acknowledge any instance of me being hypocritical. Absolutely. And generally, I think it's impossible to live a life that's not hypocritical, right? Like if I made it a point to avoid being hypocritical at all costs. I think I haven't like sat down and thought about this that much, but I would reason to believe that it's probably almost impossible to live a life from your actions and words that is not hypocritical in some way. And I guess the solution to that, the only way you could do it is just don't say anything. Have an opinion on nothing. If you have an opinion on nothing, that could be one way to circumvent being hypocritical. The issue is, it's like you have people that are, again, I'm just kind of using people and just like, don't read too much, and I'm not calling anyone out or it being any directed towards anyone. I'm just saying that it's what you see a lot as an observer in the world. But you see people that like are opinion this, opinion that. I think this, I think that, I think this, and then you just like watch them for like 10 minutes, and they just do like something completely contrary to what they were just going on and on and on about. And so I'm just like, really, you don't see the irony there? But it's the solution to that is just to not be so outspoken about everything, and not have such like set in stone opinions. And it really comes back to this idea of just kind of having some humility in the greater scope of who the fuck you are, because you didn't create the universe, and there's so much you don't know, and the more that you learn, you realize that there's that much more you don't know. It's like, what did Socrates say? It's like, all I know is I know nothing, kind of thing. I think that's a pretty good like take to have on it, honestly, because truly it is like the more you learn about even some specific subject matter, if you're a critical thinker and a hard worker, of course, you can come away with the fact that, okay, well, if there's 10 layers to this, like I can only imagine how many more layers come with X and Y and Z and stuff, and then eventually it comes to a point where it's like, okay, holy shit, there's literally so much that I could know about something that it's not really worth me trying to see like 2 little bullet points and making this large sweeping generalization, and then like getting pissed off about someone else being hypocritical. It's like, just shut the fuck up. So it's I don't know. I don't even know why I got on that like trend thing, but that was pretty pro or pretty anti modern day society. So that's kind of par for the course, I guess, with my thing. An interesting hypothetical. Sorry, I'm drinking water. I think the change in like moisture content, like humidity content, moisture content, humidity in the atmosphere, like made my lips dry. I don't have dry lips. I'm not one of those like crusty ass lip people, but for some reason, like it must have just got dry or something because it got colder, and now my lips are all like chapped and shit. It's fucking annoying. But I think it's like I don't really know if I want to start using chapstick, because I feel like that also, like, does my body get used to the moisture, the artificial moisturization of chapstick, and then like, does it fuck with my production? I don't know. I'm not gonna like go into that too much. If it gets really bad, I'll start using chapstick. But ultimately, I have found myself just absolutely pounding water to try and offset. I guess it's just less humidity. I don't know, or something else wrong with me. But anyway, interesting hypothetical posed. One of my commenters. I'm going to keep referring to people that leave comments as one of my commenters, even though they're like my real life friends. Said that he asked what, like, if I had, and again, I might be misconstruing a little bit, so just bear with the hypothetical that I come up with if it's not. if it's not true to exact form, I'm not going to go back and find the comment right now just because I'm in the middle of it. But he basically said if I had supreme like power, so this is like supreme influence, supreme money, the ability to afflict change on a worldwide scale or something, what would I do? And I'm assuming he's talking about in the modern day, like today, like, or this era at least. And what would I do? Interesting. So, I mean, I have to think about what's the priority? What do I want to do, right? I think I have to go beyond, obviously I have to go way beyond my individual scope. So it's like, obviously I could just like, I would just plug my YouTube channel and then try to make a bunch of money and then go fuck off to an island somewhere or something. Obviously that's one stupid approach is to take it the selfish route. That, I could do, just with any, because I think influence and power go hand in hand. And money's in that equation too, but certainly those with influence over people in any way, even if you don't even have a lot of money, if what you say can cause and changes, it's very powerful, just as powerful as having money, really, because that's what money pays for. If you do have money. Anyway, what would I do? So I want to think about like what my end goal would be. That would be the first thing. I don't want to jump right into action. I want to think about what am I trying to accomplish, right? What's the mission behind it? I think one thing that, again, this sounds like I sound like such a loser when I say this, but I'm very much in favor of just collaboration over like competition. I think competition should be used as like a secondary contributor to growth, in lieu of collaboration, because I think competition ultimately leads to like cutting corners and like maximum optimization, which I think was good for, and really is good, I think, evolutionarily, biologically, but I think socially, cutting corners is just not what you want to do. Economically too, I think past a certain point, you don't want to be cutting corners, because then corners are often quality and reliability and things that are just not good. So on the basis of trying to, instead of making the world and everything more competitive, right, where it's like, or giving us the upper hand, right, because that could be one thing I could do, is just try and make it where there's this supreme power, right, that the United States is kind of wiping out the competition in some way. But like ultimately, I think we would accomplish more not in direct competition. We would accomplish more in collaboration, and then competition is something that's more more natural. It's a fun form of competition, right? You do it out of fun, because like think about the ways that competition is fun. It's like fun to be competing, but in a way that it's not like do or die, right? Where it's like, I'm going to compete to do the best on this project, but ultimately I'm not going to like try and delete the other team's project and set, because that ultimately that would give me a better grade. If there's more shitty grades out there, I can have a better grade relative. But instead, like, okay, we're working on this together. Let's like all see what we can come up with that's the best. But like, let's work together. But then like, who can contribute the most, or who can do this and that? I think it should be internal to collaboration. So competition should be internal to collaboration. So this is all just a very roundabout way of saying that I would probably pursue efforts to try and unite a lot of foreign and domestic bodies. And I think a lot of it, because like competition is so deep rooted into our culture, that's kind of an unrealistic ideal. Like, people just like competing. They like cutting the toes off and stepping on other people's toes and really kind of fucking with other people just so they can get ahead. People like that. It's just kind of been ingrained in our nature now. But especially on an international scale, like I'm around a lot of people right now, just because I'm in New York City, so it's a very diverse place. But people from all over the world, and you realize how like absolutely cutthroat some of the countries are, especially like academically. It's like literally, fuck you, I'm gonna get my bag. I hope you all fail. Fuck you. And that's like present a little bit in like American business, I think. But it's especially prevalent in like foreign schools. So I get here and I'm a collaborative learner. I like working together on stuff. Like, even if it's an individual project, I think it's better to like have somebody there to bounce ideas off and like figure it out. Like, no, fuck that. Some people in my school would rather just die and everyone fails versus them having to work with anyone else. But that's how you're supposed to get that much done. Like, yeah, you might like get a better grade if you like actively thwart my progress, but like, I think if we actually want to accomplish something on a large scale, like good and for humanity that's big, you're one person. You're not going to do anything. You're not going to put a dent in it, right? Unless you have like beyond fuck you money, your little individual contribution is going to be meaningless. So I think that there's just not an emphasis on collaboration. So if there's one thing I could accomplish, it would be, if I had supreme power, it would be using the hippie terminology, yo, world peace, right? But it's not like, yo, bro, let's stop fighting, bro. Like, I'm not saying in that sense. I think there's a lot of competition that is good, and you can still have a certain amount of competition domestically and foreign. But ultimately, like, a lot of these conflicts are just stupid. Just people just, like, it's not even in the best interest of people. Like, if there are true social interactions on international scales that should result, it's like, okay, what your people have done is unspeakable, let's fight over it or something. I'm not saying you have to, like, forgive and forget to a extreme extent, right? I'm just saying, generally speaking, all the international quarrels and this and that, like, there's not even an attempt at diplomacy at a lot of these. And it's like, I don't know. Like, what are we even fighting for? Like, really, you think what's the need to still, like, actually kill people for nothing? And it's like, when we wouldn't have to, right? Can we agree that, like, being alive is just better than being dead? So it's okay. It's like, I don't know. Is there other ways that we can manage conflict that doesn't involve, like, just like throwing explosives at each other? Anyways, I feel like I sound like a hippie, and I totally do. But I just, like, I've read about all these so many world conflicts, and then I'm just like, why are you fighting over that? Jesus Christ, what, the oil prices are bad? They're gouging you for oil prices, so it's like, okay, then, like, start charging them quadruple on fucking this. Or obviously that's probably what ended up leading to them, bombing each other. But couldn't you sit down with the president and be like, yo, like, what's the deal? Like, why are you guys charging us double for oil now? And they're like, well, you guys shot somebody at the border. It's like, okay, like, what do you want me to do about that? I'm sorry. You're gonna hold it against our entire country now, and like that doesn't that seem a little petty? Like, why don't you just kind of, it's okay, like, move on. Like, what would you like me to do to reprehend that? You want to charge us double on oil now indefinitely because some dipshit at our border patrol shot one of your guys? Like, how am I supposed to do about that? I'm sorry. Like, yeah, it's terrible. Like, we'll give you guys a check. How much do you want? Or we'll, hold a funeral race or something like that. But the difference is, like, no, we want war. It's like, why though? It's like, it's going to be so much more effort for everyone. You're just literally pissing money away. All these buildings that you've built, you're just going to blow up. Like, what's the fuck's the point in that? And we're just going to, like, build these like, and invest in all this R&D and technology just to literally just blow up or just destroy, or just, like, and I feel like we're just giant kids, like, wanting to destroy Legos. But it's on the scale of buildings. And I realize that I'm glossing over so many other political, social, and governmental factors that go into these, and but it's if there's something I could make an impact on, it's just to try to get people to to change the way that conflict is resolved on a larger scale. Because I really, honest to God, I mean, I wish there was more like context in terms of history class and why they, and at least how it was explained to me, why a lot of these conflicts started. But to some extent, it just seems like petty drama, and people just don't want to like come to a reasonable conclusion about it and talk about it, right? So instead of like bottling up your feelings and exploding, it's like, let's just kind of be reasonable. Let's not get emotional. All right, let's just think, okay, whatever happened. Like, there's no, okay, we can't go back. How can we make it sustainable going forward? Not in a way it's like, okay, well, I'm gonna have to kill half your people. It's like, okay, fine. And I mean, I don't know. I don't know. It's tough to have perspective if you don't have perspective. It's one way to put it, because like I've never been the president of a country or a world, so I don't know how these people act, right? I don't know what their psyche is. You know, I would think somebody on an individual scale that like I can talk to, generally speaking, I can find a common ground and think about, okay, well, what are their interests behind doing this, or you know, why'd they do that? Okay, so they did this. You know, how did I feel about that? Okay, well, let's kind of work through this. But maybe on the national scale, the international scale, it's different. These people are just totally different in terms of like their internal psyche and motivation, or their ego too. I don't know, because I think you know, especially within a very small circle of influence, the ego is only so big, right? And a lot of times it's like, it's something you can ignore. Let's say there's some dipshit at the gym or something that is just noticeably has this absolutely enormous ego. No one has to address him or her. They can just leave him alone. It's fine. Like, he can just exist there. No one has to deal with all his problems. He's just got a big ego and he just won't shut up, whatever. But ultimately, if that person, like, let's say he was a president, and everyone's like, oh my God, here's the freaking prime minister of France. Like, this guy's got the biggest ego, he's the biggest douchebag ever. Every time at one of these conferences, he's such a pain in the ass. I don't actually know who it is. If I get put on the French mafia list, like, you heard it here first. But is it like that, right? I mean, otherwise it's just like basically high school, like these fucking idiots. Like, why is that guy even the prime minister, right? And I don't know. I don't know if I want to give them too much credit in the sense where it's like, I could do a better job, fuck you. There's certainly a lot more that goes into it. I can't admit that me just being overly reductive is reasonable, because it's probably not. But I would just be so curious to know, like, how these people are on an individual level. Right? Do they consider themselves untouchable, or they consider themselves just like you and I? They just, you know, have to make hard decisions. I realize the decisions are hard. Like, everyone makes hard choices, you know, but their hard choices just aren't on the scale of, you know, entire nations. But my question would be just how do they think about those problems? Do they think about it selfishly? Do they think about it, you know, because I even think from on the, you know, national or the international governmental board or something, or the UN conference, right? You're kind of looking out for your country, right? So I'm sure the guy in France is doing exactly what the guy in France thinks he should do and wants for the French, right? Only because he probably thinks that no one else is looking out for the French other than him, right? Which, again, it kind of comes to this competition versus collaborative idea, where it's like, by nature, no one by default, no one is looking out for France except for the guy from France. That's why they have a rep. That's why he's there, and that's why they need to have him there. So ultimately, since he's the only guy that's looking out for France, keep saying French, France, he needs to like fight for every inch he can get. Because again, if he just kind of lays down and doesn't take anything, everyone's gonna hate him because he didn't do shit for you guys, you know. So he's like, I'm gonna fight for every inch, and if it means I have, you know, the Italians hate me a little bit, who cares? Like, I'm after the French. But then, like, you take a step back and you're like, okay, well, theoretically, with the amount of progress and resources that, you know, we have on the earth and we're technologically capable of getting and doing, isn't it reasonable that, like, we could kind of make it so everyone wins a little bit? Is that possible? Well, I'm all over to win-wins, and I realize that's not always possible, but I would certainly reason to believe that there's a lot more win-winning that could go on than what does. And I don't know. I'd be really curious to understand and kind of be able to interact with people that have that kind of decision making. Because I don't know, I'd be curious to see how they think about themselves and their problems. Where do they see themselves in the problems, right? Do they kind of see themselves as some kind of god or father, or are they, just another citizen who's kind of looking out for their country? But very interesting question. Hope the answer I gave was again, it wasn't really much of an answer. It was just kind of a free-form thought shit. But it's I'm hoping it was intriguing. Anyway, that was interesting to talk about and think about. Love to revisit it if there's any kind of response to that. Yeah, I'm gonna move on to my my next text document thing. Yeah. So here's another thing I was thinking about. I kind of mentioned this. I guess I'll talk about this. So I mentioned earlier about the how I thought, even like social influence now is the new is the new standard, right? It's the new gold standard in terms of it being like the new meta, or I guess for lack of a better word too, it could be one way to describe it. But essentially, I just think it's especially in the eyes of big companies and even smaller companies, like having influence is so important. Having user base is so important because that's how you monetize and make your money, whatever, from a business perspective at least. And then from an individual's perspective, like the clout and internet fame or whatever that means, is such at a premium these days because it's you're fighting for those big houses, Boardwalk and Park Place, really, in terms of what they represent on a social larger scale. And it's on the point where it's now kind of even beyond like your money or your athletic prowess or your business acumen, where you're really just valued on the amount of followers and subscribers and whatever the measure of political influence or of social influence is now again the goal. How many gold bars do you have? Well, no, it's like, okay, I have 10 million subscribers. And it's strange to think that that's now even in some ways more valuable than like your knowledge or your acumen or even your athletic prowess, which isn't really, in a lot of cases, isn't really controllable, right? I wasn't born 10 feet tall, so it's not really fair. But ultimately, that's still, even like, no one cares unless you have, you can sell merch on your TikTok account or your whatever, right? Which is dangerous and gets people to do crazy things just for clout. Because at least now, like, it used to be the point where it's like people do wild shit, but it's just like it's for the money. Like you can kind of see why they would justify it. Because it's money. You can do stuff with it. But now it's like another step removed, where it's like they do it because they can get followers, and then the followers doesn't necessarily equal money, but it just gives you a better chance. But it just leads to a lot of just disingenuous content and disingenuous people and beliefs and actions that are just disingenuous, centered around trying to get more influence. And I see that as being dangerous in several ways, just because it's what you're getting, like, once you lose it is like, because inevitably, like, no following lasts forever, especially on the internet. So it's not like you can establish some immortal online presence just by a viral video, right? Of you like sticking your dick in a tub of ice cream at a Target or something like that. Whatever people are doing for internet clout these days. I don't follow all this shit. Whereas it used to be the point where it's like, there was a point where like intelligence was, or even art was like the pinnacle of importance. That was the power. That was the influence, right? So like Mark Twain being such an influential writer was like he lived in immortality because of his writing prowess, and that was a skill that was going to be with him. So even if he like, lost all his money or whatever, he kind of had that as that kind of what the fuck. He kind of had that as an asset, right? Whereas now the assets are so like they're like almost gaseous. They're not even like things that you could do. Like, so instead of having a bunch of gold bars or having money to back up on, or having useful connections or business acumen or intelligence or skill of art or in some sense, it's instead just like followers that are just, it's so gaseous. It's like it's not even it could be rendered worthless almost instantly, especially now that it's in the hands of a larger business. Whereas like before, like let's say Mark Twain writes, a book or something. It's his book. Like he's got the book, and even if someone, the publisher has the rights to the book or something, ultimately like he can just go write another one, right? Like he's got the skill. And again, obviously it's not that easy. You can't just whip it out. But ultimately he's like, it's his. That's what's valuable in terms of his production. Versus like now, if you just let's say I amass 10 million subscribers, something ridiculous. YouTube could just delete my account. And then what do I have then? Nothing. I mean, I have people that might know who I am, but I see it in a little bit of a different light, where it's like, is that as valuable as having the money or business acumen or, again, whatever, gold bars, whatever used to be really the standard or the goal or whatever's in pursuit is now just literally just your dick in someone else's hands. And it's tough because they can just like demonetize all your shit and this and that. And you see even creators on here that are struggling with all that because, oh my god, this is going to be a pain in the ass. Shit. Of course, only creepers that spawn. Yeah, it's a little concerning, especially that people are going to such extreme lengths to get it. I'm just not sure if it's especially worth it, because you're really risking a lot. Reputation, like your social reputation, used to be. Again, I'm speaking about the olden times here. It's just a black box, but it used to be very important, and then it was like people that were socially ostracized, that they lost a lot. But now people are free, like willingly risking their entire social life or social reputation just for like the chance of having a bunch of clicks. And they're doing like just atrocious stuff, like I said, literally sticking your dick in a pint of Target ice cream or something, where it's like, why on, I think of it as like, the dad who has to tell the son that like, the cops show up to the door and he's like, what the fuck, what's going on? He goes, oh, we caught your son sticking his dick in a tub of ice cream at Target. And then he's like, what? He's like, yeah, we caught him there. Like, it's obviously for some, some internet trend. But now, like, the guy has like a felony or something on his record, and he just risked like, maybe his kid was in college or something or whatever. But now he's like, theoretically, he could have just thrown away what really would be his entire life, just for the chance. Like, it's possible he made a YouTube video of him sticking the dick in the ice cream and no one even watched it. Like, it's possible. People are willing to go that far just for the potential. Because it's not even a sure thing, right? Of that. And it's not immortal either. It's not like you are dropping out of school to write a book that's going to, it could put you in the immortality sphere of writers for the rest of your life, right? Like, you're going to write the next Harry Potter. Because, like, once you've written that, and, like, you have the potential to be immortal, even if your dick ice cream prank thing goes viral for what, like, a couple days? And, like, how long can you ride that high, right? How sticky are those customers? Or those, not even customers, what are they? They're not buying anything from you. How sticky are those viewers, right? Like, somebody else is just going to go put their nuts in ice cream next, and they're going to, like, steal all your views. It's not like you're resorted to doing, like, crazier and crazier things. It's always crazy. You hear these, like, ridiculous things that people have done for views, and it's like, where did you even, like, what was the one, what led before this, right? You feel like the dad who's talking to the police, and he's like, what, son, what on earth is going on? Like, who thought this was a good idea? Well, it's only because, someone keeps pushing the envelope, because there's a chance of being rewarded. So it's like, one guy just, like, thinks it's funny to, like, turn the tub of ice cream over, so it's like everything's upside down. But the next guy's like, oh, I'm gonna, like, sneak a index card with my name on it or something in the tub or something. This is a stupid example. And the next person's like, ooh, I'm gonna lick it. And then, like, it gets all the way to the point where it's like, ooh, if I stuck my dick in it, it'd get the most views. And that's like, I don't know, I can't help but feeling like the boomer dad. It's like, what the hell's wrong with you people? But, instead of having, one delinquent son, it's just, you're kind of looking collectively at a generation of people that are defined by these, like, ridiculous things. And I'm sure that, if you're thinking about this yourself, there's probably other examples that might resonate better. I'm just picking the dick in the tub of ice cream thing as just the first stupid thing that came to mind, so I'm hoping it's not too far out of pocket. But you could probably see what I mean in terms of just influence being so, the wish of influence being so influential, that people just do crazy things for it. Whereas it used to be people who would do crazy things for money or for, to publish their new book or something. But it was just less risky pursuits, and they didn't, like, if you drop out of school to write your book, you weren't, like, risking, you weren't in school anymore or something, but you weren't, like, the police weren't going to show up and say, hey, you dropped out of school. They're just going to be like, it's the IRS, we're here to collect your taxes, type of thing. Because inevitably you didn't have any money to pay taxes. It's crazy to me that the risk just isn't registered as much to people. It's like, just because it's the allure of so much internet points is so entrancing that it's willing to sacrifice everything that anyone could have worked for, an entire lifetime of things, just for some internet points. It's interesting. I don't know. It's I'm curious, disheartened, but very intrigued to see where this this kind of puts us in 50 years or so. I heard this term being used by one of my friends. He knows who he is, but like he said he called it the iPad generation. So it's a generation of kids that just grew up with staring at an iPad, because their parents would rather just put them in front of an iPad than to actually parent them. I wonder how that's going to turn out. I mean, I'm going to take a wild guess and say not great, but I'm still mildly curious on how it's going to turn out. Again, my hopes are pretty low, but I don't know. Could be pretty crazy. Anyway. So, I guess another thing I wrote down, just as interesting thing, were, for some reason, I don't know why I was thinking about this, but you've heard the term, like, red flags for people, mostly in, like, a romantic context, which I think is a fair context to kind of think about that in, absolutely. But what they say is important as well as the people that you even spend time with, so your friends. And so it's almost like you should be selective about your friends too, because you don't, if you have deadbeat friends, even if you're the most ambitious or the smartest or the whatever person, if you have shitty friends, it can, you can quickly delinquent yourself. So I was thinking about, what are some of the things I look for, or what are my red flags, or even just for friends? You got me thinking about, because I was also really what I was trying to pin down here are what are like what do I value in someone? Like, there's things that I certainly don't value. It's like I don't care about anyone's money. It's certainly something I don't care about. Like, if somebody has the amount of money somebody has has no bearing on whether or not I'm gonna like them more or less. Like, if anything, the less money you have, the more likely I am to like you, just because you probably don't have your head as far up your ass if you have less money. But like, that's different for everyone. So I was trying to pin down what my values are, and so I thought it was easier to again think about what do I certainly not want. What are certainly not my values, right? What's the opposite of it? Or I guess one thing, and I really hate using terms that people use all the time, because I think if I use the same language other people use, you're very open to like mixed definitions of the word, and if you have a different definition than someone, it's easy for someone to be like, well, it's fucking stupid because this and this, and the word you're using means this and this and this. So I always like using my own unique words for things that this. But anyway, I think it's a fair words to describe this, but it's the like the fixed mindset versus a growth mindset. And I realize that's from a book, and again, I don't like using terms that other people have coined and used and abused a lot, just because it subjects you to a lot of undesired attention if used in the wrong way and whatever. But the having an attitude where it's like, oh, like I'm incapable of doing this and that, or like I'm stupid, or I'm helpless, I can't do that. Again, it kind of this fixed mindset where it's like I'm not, I can't figure it, I'm too stupid to do this, too stupid to that, and like the ability not to be able to grow into your environment is repulsive. I think what benefit do you have from like purposely not only like telling yourself that you're incapable of doing X, Y, or Z, but then just like openly telling someone else, yeah, I would always be terrible at this and that, like I'm never going to be good at that, this is just too difficult too hard of a problem. And for me, it's like there's a lot of stuff, there's so much stuff I don't know, but if there was something I was like, I could probably figure it out. And it's like, well, why don't you? It's like, well, some things just aren't worth it. So if that's the answer to whatever the thing is, that's fair, right? So if someone's like, well, do you know an instrument? I'd say no, I don't know an instrument. Well, I wouldn't say, oh, it's because it's too hard. It's like, oh, my fingers don't work that way, or like, oh, the music sounds stupid or something. No, my experience is like, I could learn an instrument if I wanted to, but I don't want to because I just would rather do something else, right? That's fair. That's totally fine. Like, that's a preference, right? It's a preference versus instead of being like this like loser attitude. That's another way to put it. It's just like you lose auto. Like, you're an auto loss. You don't have. There's no way that you could even win. Even if it's like having even blind confidence, where it's like, yeah, I could probably figure it out, and like maybe it's way harder than you think, but like fine. Honestly, I'm convinced that the majority of problem solving and like getting through really, really hard problems is just like not giving up on the problems. Because the reason that they're hard, so a hard problem is would define as something that a lot of people, or most people, or a certain higher percentage of people are unable to do. That's why it's hard, right? If it was easy, then anyone can do it. But literally the reason that people quit is because they just lose enough confidence so they're done trying to solve the problem. So to solve hard problems, one strategy to give yourself like the best chance of anything is just always believing that it's not like that you could figure this, not that hard, and get in and just not quitting on it. Right? Because like the moment you quit, it's like you're not even, I'm not going to go into this whole quitter thing because that's kind of like it's a whole like motivational, sappy bullshit thing, which I certainly don't agree with. But ultimately, I just think people like always box themselves into these like shitty, I can or I can't. And it's just like such a weak mindset. Like, oh, I can't do that. I can't figure that out. It's okay. You're fucking stupid. Like fine. Even if you think you're stupid, which I personally admit I'm a fucking moron. Like I'm an idiot. I still, if somebody says, oh, like, can you do this and that? Like, oh, I could try to figure it out. Like, yeah, I could probably figure it out. Or like, I'm not going to immediately go, oh, well, I'm actually a stupid person, so I can't figure it out. It's like, what the fuck? What kind of attitude is that? Like you're okay, then like you're exactly what you say you are. Versus like me, I'm stupid. But I could try and figure it out. Maybe I could see what, try if I want to, right? If I don't want to, then go fuck yourself. But yeah, it's just like people that they don't like. They immediately cut themselves off of any chance of doing anything, and they don't realize that is what. It's just that people that can solve hard problems just don't give up on them as easy, even if they are stupid. You have to feel like a dumbass at something before you ever feel smart, ever. Like you'll always feel stupid at something before you feel smart. So you'll have infinitely more periods of time where it's like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing, before you're like, okay, I know what the hell I'm doing. Nobody does anything for like the first, second, fifth, or 10th time and is like, oh yeah, I know exactly what I'm doing. No, it's like, I didn't know how to do this, but like, I'm just going to walk out. I'm sure I've fucking done this a billion times. I can figure it out. It can't be that hard. So you see like people that, it's a big difference I see in like, in athletes. So it's like, maybe if it's their first time to a championship or something, it's always like interesting to see, you have like essentially two very different responses. You have like the one type of athlete that like just shows out and is like an absolute beast. And I'm convinced a big part of that is just that they're like, oh, it's, Johnny Dickballs' first appearance in, the World Series, what's he going to do? And he's like, and Johnny Dickballs in his head is like, fucking shit, this is easy. Like, I'm fucking Johnny Dickballs. Like, I can figure this out. Like, yeah, I don't care if, old man Dickballs has been here 1,000 times. I'm me. Like, I'm going to figure this, I'm going to fucking go in here and let my shit fly. And yeah, like, I've never done this, but like, I don't care. Somebody had to do it first, right? It's not like it's going to be that different than anything else I've done, right? Versus like someone who's like, oh man, like, wonder how much it's going to be different, right? Is it going to be like, how does this compare to what I'm very familiar and comfortable with? It's like, no, you're not. Fuck being comfortable with anything. Like, Johnny Dickballs hasn't played in the World Series. It's like, he doesn't know, but he doesn't care. He's just going to pretend like he's some beast. And so it's like this fake it till you make it thing, which is like, I realize it's a stupid saying and like it's kind of dumb even to an extent to believe that, but honestly it's like, I'm convinced it's a big part of solving problems. I would love to hear alternative takes, but I truly think fake it till you make it is a viable thing. There are obviously lines to draw anywhere once you get to a certain ridiculous level of hypothetical, but ultimately, for a lot of problems, faking it till you make it is a big thing. Because there's a lot of times, especially in classes, like, I'm literally too stupid to be at anything. I'm a complete moron. I'm like, you know what? These people aren't that fucking smart. I can figure it out. And then, you ended up being all right. Okay, of course you're not gonna. Maybe it's not what you're built for, but just because you're not like built for it, doesn't mean you can't do it, right? Just because it wasn't like, just because you don't think it's in the cards, or it's not something that you were like, immediately that you're good at, does not mean you should avoid it or not do it altogether. So, I don't know. It's just my rant on things that I don't like about, that will immediately turn me off of people. If we're doing something that's like, oh, I'm just, nah, they can't, I'm just not, it's not me, I don't want, and it's one thing to be like, okay, I just don't want to do that, because I just don't want to do it, doesn't sound like fun, versus just like, no, I don't want to do it because I'm going to be bad at it, or I don't want to try and do it, it's not my thing, I'm not comfortable there, right? So being like, okay, being comfortable being uncomfortable, that was something I've heard a bunch, but it's true. I think if you're always doing stuff that you're comfortable with, you're going to be just that. You're going to be comfortable and then complacent, and you're not going to really test the bounds of what you're capable of, which to me is a big motivator of like, what the hell am I doing with my life? So I don't know. I'll just see what I'm able to accomplish. I wonder, what am I capable of? And the only way to figure that out is to just like try a bunch of shit that you're not sure that you can do. And then if it ends up being you can't do it, it's like, okay, well, I kind of saw that coming at some point, but ultimately it's like, all right, well, I fucking stuck my dick out there, so if it didn't work out, it's all right, I tried. Versus like just being like, oh no, I don't, like, I probably won't be able to do that well, or like I'm not absolutely 100% convinced that I'd be amazing at this. I'm just not going to do it. It's a shitty mindset. Yeah, it's one of my red flags for people. Yeah, I'll probably stop there. I have other red flags too, but that was one of my big ones. But anyway, hopefully you enjoyed it. I'll be back soon with another one. Peace.